Geena and Garrett, where are you at in the world right now?
We're in Phoenix, Arizona.
Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Dylan Callier. I'm a physical therapist and welcome to the New Medical Nomads podcast, where I get to document my journey as a medical traveler, as well as interview other experts within the traveling field. Now, the rules for the traveling game are constantly changing, so anything you hear on this show should be for entertainment purposes only. This is not legal, financial, or medical advice. Enjoy the show and safe travels.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the New Medical Nomads podcast. My name is Dr. Dylan Callier and today I am with Dr. Geena and Dr. Garrett Cesca. And they have an incredible story to talk about student debt today, along with being traveling PTs. Geena and Garrett, do you want to just give the listeners an idea of where you're coming from, what your traveling journey's been so far, and where you're headed?
So we are Geena and Garrett. We started traveling about 8-9 months ago. We worked for 3 years in San Francisco and just kind of got to the point where we realized we had zero savings. And we just were like, well, let's try this travel gig. We moved out of the city and we've been traveling ever since. We're in love with it. We have paid off a tremendous amount of debt in the last 9 months. And so we're just trying to get the word out there to other travelers that this is a great opportunity for fun, for financing, and just for learning in the physical therapy world.
Yeah, and I can add that after 3 years of doing outpatient in San Francisco, as fun as that was and how much it was a great time for us both professionally and with all of our friends and socially, I look back at the loans after 3 years and half of them were higher than where they started. So it was really an eye-opening experience and kind of made us reevaluate what we want to do and where we want to take our future. So we knew talking with Geena, myself, and some other physical therapists that travel was always something on our mind, something that we wanted to do, but really didn't know how to make it real. And when we kind of stared these loans in the face and after 3 years looking back and reflecting, it was like kind of a wake-up call. It's like, this is it. We got to do it now. We can take that jump.
Got it. Yeah, that's amazing. Geena, you were telling me kind of the number that you guys have been able to pay off in the past 9 months. Do you mind talking about that?
Yeah, so we started at $133,000 of debt, and we have paid off $70,000 in the last 9 months.
Yeah, just 63 left to go.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So reach now. Like it seemed like such a big mountain at 133, and now it's right in front of us. So
that is amazing. And now, was that amount between the two of you?
Yes.
Okay.
So for two physical therapists, we came out with pretty low debt for two of us.
Uh-huh.
But it's still a lot, and over 100,000 in debt is very scary.
Yes, absolutely.
When you're in school, it's crazy. Like all of us going into PT school just thought the norm was take these loans out and you'll pay them off during your career. And a lot of us didn't get very much education or know-how. And then you start, like for us, we start working and your 6-month grace period's over, time to start paying on these loans. And after a few months, for us, especially paying rent in San Francisco, between that and a loan payment, it catches up really quick and your budget gets tight really fast. And so after 3 years, it was like, all right, let's do something else. Let's figure this out.
Absolutely.
And we didn't totally start the travel mostly to pay off debt. It didn't actually really start that way. We were kind of over our jobs and we were kind of like, okay, we want to, move out of the city. We want to travel more. We do want to pay off debt, but maybe we want to save for a house. And we talked to the Renzis and they kind of really got us into Garrett was really nervous, he's very fearful of the unknown. And so kind of a big jump. And so we had talked to Jess Renzi and she was awesome on the phone and was like, if you guys like to travel, if you like to take time off, if you want to make more money, like everything she talked about, we were like, yes. Yeah. And so we kind of started that way. And then right on our first week of travel, someone introduced us to Dave Ramsey. We read that book, and then that's where it really just, okay, actually we're not going to save for a house. We're going to kill our debt. And so that's where it started, and we've done quite well so far.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
We knew that we needed to do something different. We started making that plan, and then because neither of us have any financial sense or background at all, we thought we were making the right steps, but really didn't know much. And then we only used the Dave Ramsey as a great outline for us for not having any sense. So that's basically how we've structured our budget and our payments, basically, to get to the point where we're at now and have a great kind of goal in the end sight here. So
got it. I really liked your guys' position, because I feel like most healthcare practitioners coming out of school are in this, where we aren't educated very much on finances. We aren't educated very much on these loans. And then we kind of get just thrown out to the world, and you really don't really think about it right away. And then slowly it starts to become like more and more apparent that you need to have this financial plan. And so hopefully for those listening, if you're not graduating from school yet, you can start planning now, and you'll be steps ahead of where like you guys were. But you guys were able to jump on this opportunity and kind of take advantage of it. I got to meet Jess and Gabe Renzi at CSM, the big PT national conference, and they are just a high energy couple, like amazing. Like I've been texting them. We've been trying to, communicate a little bit, and finally bumped into them and got a big hug from both of them. So great. Both great people. Well, for those who are listening that aren't physical therapists, a little background about the PT profession. We recently went from a master's to doctorate degree. And within that change, the amount of income that you make actually did not change. And so we saw this great jump in the amount of student debt that you have in order to become just your initial PT. And there's a lot of frustration coming out because it's hard to pay off those loans, and it's hard to do it with just a standard 9-to-5 job. And so there are a lot of people out there searching for other avenues in order to pay off that debt. And that includes travel PT as a way to quote unquote win, in my book, where you're actually able to make those, not only pay it off quickly like you guys, but also be able to use those excess funds in order to make financial investments and set you up for success in the future. But even if you're not a PT, everybody's feeling this pain coming out of school because, well, you look at the trends in the past, 10 years, 20 years, and education is just skyrocketing. It's taking off at this exponential curve. And so I feel like there's a lot more interest now into traveling because of the financial incentive, because of the amount of debt that people are coming out with. So I'm really glad to, get your guys' story out there in order to have some support for people who are dealing with these 6 figures coming out of school.
I think the biggest surprise, if you look at just our little 4-year chunk of time since we graduated and we've been practicing, is for 3 years, we really didn't make much headway. It was a huge number. You don't really think about paying it off fast. It's sitting there. It's some of mine were 15 years, some of them were 25 years. And then just in 8-9 months of travel, we're looking at finishing these things in about 1.5 years total. And it's just really empowering. It's an awesome feeling. And I have no idea what it's going to feel like when it's all off of us. I can't wait for it. It makes you work a little harder, and you feel like you are going to win.
Yeah.
I think, PT it's not the most lucrative salary. You obviously do it because you love doing it, but it's still a good career, in general. But to have that much debt, like you can't ever do anything. It's really difficult to buy a house and then have a student loan sitting there for 25 years. And for us, we just didn't want to do that. That was just so scary once we started looking at the numbers. And so travel has really given us that opportunity that when we do want to settle down, I don't know how we're going to settle down after doing travel, but when we do, we'll just have to, we'll have a loan on a house and that is it. We're never going to have a student loan sitting over us. That, half the country is a mortgage payment or a mortgage in general.
Mm-hmm. And during the previous kind of financial specific podcast that we've talked about with student debts, you guys obviously have this big emotional investment in that debt number where you're trying to get that down so you don't have that burden. It feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the only option. So for the listeners, myself, I take income-based and basically pay the lowest amounts that I can. And then any type of excess funds that I have is going into other financial investments. And just that excess, usually the percentage of the return is a little bit greater than the percentage of the accruing debt. And so that was kind of the why behind my decision in order to do that. But it's obviously a big emotional burden if you're paying this thing for 20, 25 years. And so I can understand your guys' position.
Jared really hit it on the head when he said, because we listened to all three of them when he was like, if you get emotionally attached to that and it's scary, then pay it off. And we're those people. So we're just kind of the other perspective for someone that if it is scary and over your head and you want to get it out of the way, this is a great route.
Yeah, because the math, when you guys talk it out, I mean, the math makes sense. If your return on investment is higher than your interest rate, if you can play it out over that length of time, great, that's awesome. And I think there's a lot of people who could do that. And then there's the other people who just want to be done with it and then focus on the investing or the next big thing, whether it's a house or maybe a camper and keep traveling. I don't know.
We don't know yet.
To be determined. Cool. Do you guys remember what the repayment plan was that you guys chose coming out of school? And did that change once you started traveling?
It did. At least for me, I know that half of my loans were the federal loans. Those were on a fixed 25 years at 6.8%. And then I had a couple Sallie Mae private loans that ranged. They were all fixed payments, but they were between, what were they at? Between some, no, not quite that high, about almost 8%. So a total, I think I came out at $114,000 in debt at that time, with ranging from 6.8 up to almost 8%.
Wow. So
after the 3 years, writing it out like that, seeing 3 of them were higher than where they started, I did have the opportunity. I found a good institution that took all of my loans and consolidated at 4.2. So that dropped my payment from about $1,200 a month down to about $700 a month, and dropped it all down to 15-year, which signing it then felt really good. Paying it off, a total 10 years sooner and at a almost 3% different interest rate. I kind of laughed though, thinking 15 years, and they were telling me if you pay them off in 4, you get some interest kicked back to you. Just kind of laugh at that.
We're right.
15 years sounds great. I'm not going to get rid of them in 4. And here we are looking at a year and a half to be done with them. So it's crazy how much has changed. And that was back in May. So less than a year ago, how much that's changed.
Yeah, that's quick. When did you realize that, holy shit, I'm going to be able to pay this off within the next couple of years?
We started over summer, pretty much May. We just were oh my God, crunching the numbers, okay, we can do this. And then, it's an uphill battle. It's kind of scary for a while. And I think at Christmas, when we realized half of it was done, we were all right, we can do this. And now we're over halfway. We know we can do it. But I mean, it was very scary for a while because you're every extra penny you have is going towards debt. And you're just God, if I actually had that money, Now to see the numbers really coming down is exciting. Motivating.
Yeah, one of the kickers for us was when we were still in San Francisco practicing, we kind of ran what our budget looked like a month in San Francisco, and then a hypothetical of what our travel budget looked like. The difference was thousands and thousands of dollars. And it was that was a little Kickstarter. And then we put it into action, and it was even better than we thought. So anybody hesitating right now on whether to travel or not, and if they need that extra money and have that kind of personality and drive, do it. I was very hesitant and fear the unknown, but I am not looking back at all. There are no regrets.
You needed an extra push.
That push over the ledge is
That's awesome. That's awesome. Geena, can you talk a little bit about your debt as well? And then did you guys end up combining the debt, or have you left them separate?
No, so everything is combined.
Okay.
So my debt, I was just very lucky with great parents that were able to pay for my stuff. So my debt was actually just a car.
Okay.
So we just combined everything
Okay.
and just tackled it. And originally we weren't. Garrett was going to pay his loans. I was going to pay my car, and we were just not going to worry about it. And then we were like, no, if we look at these numbers, like look at how fast we can pay the car off and hit Garrett's loan. And that's when once we crunched the numbers, which we had never done before, we realized, wow, this could be very powerful with the.
Well, yeah, I mean, the power of two incomes going at a single goal, you see progress faster.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you said that you guys have refinanced your loans. Can you talk about what exactly refinancing means, and then talk about the experience of like going through that?
So the refinance, that basically, in my situation, was taking, I think I had about 3 or 4 federal loans and another 2 or 3 personal loans or private loans through Sallie Mae. The refinance, this institution took all of them, consolidated them all together. So it was just one big loan instead of 6 or 7 smaller loans with different interest rates. And again, like I said earlier, my interest rates range from 5 something to up to almost 8. When consolidated them, it brought them all down to 4.2, which you won't see that all the time. Not all the institutions will do that. But when you can get all of your loan at a lower interest rate, sometimes it will be kind of like the average of your interest rates, which might help you a little bit. But if you can find something that gets it down for all of them, you're saving a ton in the interest. And for me, like I said, the monthly payment went from about $1,100 or $1,200 down to about $700. So it really helps you month to month, and it helps you over the long term save a lot of the interest that you're paying. The process, there's a lot of different loan services that will do that for you. I've had a lot of buddies of mine from PT school look into different ones, and I had researched a few that just nothing really gave me that interest rate that really made it worth it. And then, I mean, I've used First Republic Bank, and they have a great product out there right now that I've been very happy to switch to. And being at 4.2% and paying $400 less a month feels pretty good.
Got it. Awesome. And First Republic Bank is not a sponsor of the show, but we would gladly accept them as one if they are interested. That's awesome. And so I've heard refinancing is not for everyone. So if anybody out there is considering it, definitely talk to some professionals at your local bank, some professionals that you're interested in working with, or if you don't have anyone, Joseph Franke, who's been on the show, is also a really good person to reach out to on refinancing or any other financial questions that you might have. So you guys, you said the original push wasn't necessarily financial in nature. Can you talk about the original reason that you guys decided to travel?
Yeah, I think we were working in San Francisco. We told you this. We had about 13 days off a year, and so we would get like 1 day a month, and we always had 3-day weekends planned. And I think one day our manager came up to us and was like, "You guys are really taking off too much time." I was like, 1 day a month? So that was kind of like, oh, well, we really like to travel. We want to go to Europe. This isn't going to work for us. So that was kind of our first thing. And then the finance was the second thing. And, I had heard so many other people doing travel, and it was always just something that sounded exciting and new, and to try different settings, because we were in outpatient. We were kind of stuck in outpatient. And so we just kind of embraced it, and that kind of pushed us over.
Got it.
The extra time off in between contracts and stuff, and that's a huge plus.
For sure. Do you guys have a favorite travel story since you've kind of gotten into this and now you're all excited and not sure if you're going to stop?
Oh, that's a good one. There's so many. We did first travel in San Luis Obispo area of California, and there was an amazing group of travelers there. Like, we got through the Facebook group. I mean, honestly, the Facebook is so powerful. We got connected through there and just started hanging out with all these travelers, but can't think of a specific. I mean, we went to Yosemite.
I think I'm pretty cool. And there was probably, when we started, about 20 different travelers, but we really became, 6 months there, a good core group of about maybe 8 people. And I mean, we're invited to one of their weddings coming up soon.
Oh, wow.
In a short period of time, we became that close. And yeah, we did a Yosemite trip together, and it's amazing. Yeah. When you start just getting out there and networking, and yeah, it's powerful. It's fun.
I always enjoy traveler meetups, and that's something that I've been trying to do myself. We've got to have one. I'm here in Palm Desert. We went to Temecula and had some traveler meetups there. Got to have one in St. Louis. It's always interesting because all these travelers, it's like all the barriers are down, and they're just cool with everything. And so they're really open, connect really fast. Like, everything's just on this accelerated path, because when you're in a certain specific area only for a certain amount of time, you basically cut through all the BS and you just get straight to who they are as a person. And it's really cool. And it's really fun. I don't get that experience with a lot of people who aren't travelers.
Right.
Well, it's pretty interesting too. I think there is a select couple of traits that people have that are traveling. I think a lot of them share that commonly. And like you said, you kind of take the shield or the ice out real quick, and you see those common traits. You see a little bit more outgoing, a little bit more adventurous. You don't want it to sit around. You're not traveling to just stay cooped up in your rental there. It's like you get out and do things, and now you've got a little group or community to go do that with.
Yeah, I think that's the fun part, is people are just ready to try so many different things and see different places. And so if you get connected with these groups of people, you're like, oh yeah, I didn't even know that was there. Let's go, or I haven't tried this, or, we played beach volleyball. I'm horrible at beach volleyball, but I learned and I got a little better. It's like you got to push out of your comfort zone, but it's really fun to meet these groups of people.
And the traveler happy hours are much more active and less boring. So that's pretty fun too.
Yeah, for sure. Then the barriers are even less. You mentioned sand volleyball. I am absolutely horrible at sand volleyball. If there's ever a traveler meetup with sand volleyball, I will lose friends, not make them.
No,
Gene held on to her friend. It was pretty good.
Surprisingly cut me, and I don't know. It was bad.
Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Once again, just really fun.
Is there anything that you guys have really kind of learned since you started traveling to where you're at now that you think the listeners might need to know?
Yeah, I think one of probably the best things we've learned is how much power we have right now as physical therapists in not only just the travel world, but in the community. There's a huge demand for PT. And when we first were getting into our careers, and then especially in the travel, you kind of get excited when a contract comes up, especially your first one. You're like, you want to jump on it. I think, again, going back to the Renzis, they were big at helping us ask the right questions and negotiate. But you find out that you don't have to settle. You can, negotiate. You can have a conversation. You can really ask for things that you want to see at that contract. And if you don't get it, or they don't, guys don't see eye to eye on a contract, you don't have to take it. There's probably another job pretty close by. And I think that was probably the best thing we've learned so far.
Yeah, and I think you do have a lot of leverage. Like our first one, we were going into home health. We had never done home health before. And, the company was kind of hesitant. They were hiring 2 travelers, 0 experience. And we just had said, hey, we'll sign a double contract if you guys just train us. And they took it and they were like, sure, you guys signed in 6 months, we'll absolutely train you. And they did.
They spent a good week with us.
They spent a really great week. The rehab director, we called her so many times a day. She would follow us on visits if you wanted. You could go follow her. And, you know, I think if we would have never asked that question, we would have been thrown out and we would have gone into the home health world and been very lost, especially with all the paperwork. So just really getting that, you know, we're on our second home health contract. They didn't, you know, give us any orientation, but we know all the paperwork now.
Yeah.
It's pretty standardized. So having that really good orientation was, you know, worth the 6 months that we put in. And so not being afraid to ask, I think, is really important.
Because you won't necessarily get that at every job. So you got to kind of search for it and ask.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. I know. So right now the market for PT is pretty good, but talking with veteran travelers, there's a dip there in like 2008 where you weren't able to be as aggressive with those negotiations, and a lot of travelers ended up having to settle for like part-time jobs during that stint. And I've been told that is currently kind of what's going on with physical therapy assistants and occupational therapy assistants as well. Nursing, I'm not quite sure. I believe they're in high demand, but their market is a little more up and down throughout the year than therapists. Therapists are usually pretty level, but yeah, right now it's a good market, and being able to take advantage of that is a huge plus to get started now. Is there anything that you guys have that you're traveling with that you feel like you couldn't travel without? That can be a phone app, that can be a physical item, anything like that.
I mean, our dog is, but
you know, one thing, because we've been talking about the finance a lot, that has been really helpful that we keep using while we're traveling is a budgeting app. Actually, like writing down how much money's coming in and then making a plan for it before you don't know where it went.
Yeah,
that's actually helpful.
We use that a lot. And we
use that a lot.
We do like to travel in between our contracts, so
cool.
You know, we have our travel budget set into there.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
that a lot, because I mean, yes, we are putting a lot of money towards debt, but we also like to have fun too. And between contracts, we're trying to do and see as much as possible. So having that budgeting app so we can see how much is in our travel fund. So when we're going, you know, in between our next contract, we'll go and see a few places.
It makes it a little bit easier. It puts you at ease for us. Stressed out about the finance or the numbers again, is it puts you at ease when you have that kind of money set aside between contracts, because maybe you don't get a job right away and you have a week or two off. You want to make sure you've got some funds to rely on between jobs.
Absolutely. What is the budget app that you guys use?
The one we use is called Every Dollar.
Every Dollar. Okay. Can you does it sync to like bank accounts and different things like that? How does it work?
Free version that you have to punch in manually, but it's really user friendly. It's pretty simple. Or you can do the plus version. I'm not sure how much that is. It's not very expensive, but then that one does sync to your
bank. And it shows you how much money you have left over at the end of your budget, which is what we're always trying to hit to put towards the student loans. Yeah. So that's what's nice. It shows you like, okay, you're on track to put this much money onto your loans. Or, you know, if you want to invest it or whatever you want to do with it, it just kind of gives you that big number there.
Mm. One of the budgeting apps that I've been recommended, but I haven't used yet, is Mint, M-I-N-T.
That's the
you have that? Okay. Yeah. Do you have to pay for that one as well? Is there a free
you don't have to pay for it to be linked to your account.
Okay.
I used to use that in the city. I haven't used it in a while, but yeah, there's that one.
Got it. Are there any books or podcasts or personalities that you guys kind of follow that you would recommend? And this can be podcasts, can be related to finances, can be related to travel, sand volleyball, if you're a sand volleyball girl now, anything that you guys follow.
Well, if I'm in like the focused crackdown like mode, keep myself in the budget, I am listening to the Dave Ramsey app. If I'm trying to be a little bit more lighthearted or easygoing, I'm usually listening to like a fantasy football podcast. I keep my mind, PT or finances. And
I listen to yours a lot. Since we're doing home health, we're in the car a lot. So I listen to yours a lot.
Thank you.
I, over summer, listened to all the Harry Potter books.
Yes.
Yeah, Audible.
So Audible stuff, I mean, kind of go back and forth, but
So yeah, it gets hard to listen to like music the whole time in your car. So we've either done podcasts or Audible. Or,
Do you know what Harry Potter house you belong to? Have you taken the?
I haven't taken the test.
What? Okay. All right. Well, that's your homework for tonight. That and some quad sets.
Those were really entertaining because, the narrator is amazing, and if you're in the car for a long period of time, it's great listen.
Until I started taking those quizzes, so it's run by J.K. Rowling. The actual the actual name of it is skipping my mind right now, but of the website, she goes into like the whys of the houses and then the different like wands and the different like animals and animagus and items like that. And after reading that and then going back to the books, I can kind of like see how like that affected every single character. And so it was almost like a little sneak peek and how their personality was going to be. And so if you enjoy the books, I would highly recommend it. If not, just just for the fun of finding out what your house is, but also just getting into her mind of like this was like the plan from the beginning.
It'll help me understand my wife a little bit better if I know what she's trying.
But also, I was listening to the Paleo Solution.
Whole 30.
Depends on what mood I'm in.
Since you guys have started, has there been a surprising challenge with travel that you didn't expect coming?
You're thinking about this. This is a hard one.
Yeah, we were thinking about this before, and there are definitely challenges, but I wouldn't say there's a single one that was surprising.
Okay.
The challenges with talking or working with different recruiters or interviewing for different jobs. There's the that challenge of maybe not having a job lined up. There's a challenge of when you get to a job, you may get thrown right into it and expect to pick up, work. So
everything it's just different when people can tell you, but then when you actually have to go out and do it.
And again, this is what our 9th month, so I'm sure there will be some challenges that will come up that we weren't expecting, but I think we've been pretty fortunate. The 2 contracts we've now, just getting through our second one now after these 9 months, I think we've been pretty fortunate with our first 2. Jumped out at us.
Got it.
Lucky there. But we had good mentors. So.
Nothing was that surprising.
And then is there anything that you would tell a couple out there, or maybe a single person who's thinking about getting on, who's kind of on the fence of whether travel's right for them or not? Maybe they have the financial incentive like you guys did. Maybe they're just, kind of run down with the current job. What would you tell that person?
Yeah, I think if you have the right personality and you're outgoing and kind of ready to just jump and learn new things, it's an amazing opportunity. One, if you're burnt out, like we were very burnt out from outpatient. So getting to have a couple weeks off and then trying a new setting is really cool because, I was very ortho outpatient based. I would have never tried anything else. And now I actually really enjoy home health. It's been a great opportunity. And so I think sometimes we kind of get after, you graduate, you go into one job and you're like, this is all I can do. It just gives you the opportunity to try things, meet new people, learn so many new skills.
There's a lot of room for professional development. You can almost think about these 13-week contracts as like clinical internships. You take it the right way. You're meeting a lot of people pretty quickly, so you are getting a lot of professional development. And if you don't get a great contract, it's only 13 weeks, and if it's really bad, you can usually get pulled out of it too. So that took a little bit of the fear away if you're hesitant because of that kind of side of it. You can get out of it, or it's only 13 weeks. We can get through that. We've been through worse in PT school.
I think our quality of life has changed so much.
It's incredibly
much better
different.
Way, and it's just like we would have never been where we're at right now if it wasn't for travel.
I think a lot of people usually in PT school are about our age, and so many of our friends are getting married or having showers or bachelorette parties. that was kind of our big issue. We only had 13 days off, and we had all these different events that we wanted to go to. And that's another great reason where you can, if you know that you need some time off or you will have a big vacation planned ahead, you can actually put that into your contract when you are signing a new contract. Say, hey, I want to do 13 weeks or 26 weeks, but in the middle, there's a week or two I'm going to be gone. And if they're okay with that, it's in the contract and you're covered. Maybe you're not probably going to get paid for that, but off that your manager's not done.
I think if you're hesitant and you want to try something new, you should. I mean, and the network of people we've met has just been
the
amazing.
traveler community is amazing. It's a great group of people.
Yeah. Even at CSM, we met so many people. And now kind of anywhere you go, you have all these connections. And so I just think, if you're very hesitant, do it.
Awesome. Well, you guys have paid, what was it, $70,000?
Yeah.
Within the past 9 months. What's the timeline to be debt free?
It depends on our next job, but, and how much we can get. But hopefully by October, November, we're going to put December just in case.
Originally, with this other 63, we talked about, Christmas was going to be a great Christmas because that was it. We're going to be debt free. But if we really get to it and get the right job and we work hard, we can be done sooner.
October,
sooner
maybe.
the better. I mean, if we do it next time, that's incredible.
That's awesome.
Hopefully, by Christmas. That's our hard deadline.
Do you have like a physical post-it somewhere of the number?
Upstairs, we do have a couple of good motivators.
Every time we pay every month, we add to the principal. We highlight.
It keeps you.
It's a picture of Sally Mae dying.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, it's like a cartoon, but that keeps us motivated because sometimes you're just like, oh my God, this sucks. But, when you can see that and see it coming up, you're like, all right, we can do this. So by the end of this year.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you guys would want to tell the listeners?
I think our biggest thing was we just kind of wanted to give another option to people out there if you are the person that has that personal tie with your student loans. We just wanted to kind of share our story so that, people can do it if they feel like this is a great option for them. Well, you can also have people reach out to me on my Facebook. We're happy. We would love to help people. We were pretty lost until very recently. So we would love to help people so that, you don't have to have this thing hanging over you if it's going to bother you, So
I think the great thing is there's so many options with what we're doing. And Jared had a great piece and he had great options with what you can do with your finances. Travel gives you so many options with what kind of settings you want to do and what you want to do for your future. You can set that up and really achieve a lot by taking this route.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what we're all after is just a little bit of freedom.
Yeah.
Flexibility.
When I was in PT school, I'd take my internships and people are like, oh, you're not going to be able to do anything because you have these loans. And you're in PT school, you're like, yeah, right. And then you go out in the real world and you're like, this kind of is what they were saying. And so if you can figure out a way to where you can have a life and get rid of your debt or pay the bare minimum and be able to do what you want to do, I think that's what we're all here to do.
Absolutely.
Travel can definitely give you that lifestyle.
I just want to treat patients and have fun when I go home.
Yeah. And, hopefully next year we want to take a month off and go to Europe. And
I love that part.
Yeah. When you guys
going places for a month or two, that's it. You don't want to just go for a week or two and use all your PTO. You want to take that time and really enjoy where you're going. I love that part.
Yeah.
Sure. I think it's something that I picked up from reading. I believe it was the book was called Vagabonding, and it was this idea of mini retirements where once a year you take off and you kind of retire to a place and you get to live there and enjoy the culture and actually feel what that's like rather than just going to these tourist locations. But a movie that you guys would like is called A Map for Saturday. It is by far my favorite documentary, and it's hard to find. But once you find it, it's a story of a guy that he was a TV producer. He quit his job, and it wasn't going to be back when he came back, or wasn't going to be there when he came back. And he traveled the world for 6 months, and then he documented the whole way. And a lot of what I'm experiencing now that I'm in the travel game, everything that he talks about is so true, from, us talking about the types of personalities that you meet while you're traveling to getting to somewhere new and kind of being alone and not knowing anyone and how you deal with that. It's a really cool documentary. I think you guys would like it.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out.
And for the listeners, I'll definitely drop those down in the show notes. And thank you so much, guys, for joining on the show. And
thank you for having us.
Incredible story.
The Facebook thing in there, and people can.
Yeah, for sure.
Or anything.
Okay. And I'll also be adding you guys. Oh, sorry. Say that again.
Any other questions about refinancing or any other steps of travel or the financing of the budgeting? We certainly would love to help with that.
Awesome. Good. And I'll be adding you guys to the New Medical Nomads group on Facebook. For the listeners, you can reach out to Geena and Garrett there. And then also, if you're looking for the official launches of these podcasts, you can go to the Facebook page, New Medical Nomads Podcast. Or if you want the early access, you can follow on the YouTube channel or follow on iTunes and Stitcher. And if you're listening, I really appreciate the thumbs up, the likes, the comments. All of that helps us get our message out to the people that we're trying to reach. But thanks again, guys. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. Yes, and you guys have safe travels in Phoenix.